Today on Locked On Flames, we are going to be serving up a slice of humble pie to myself.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me here today as I fly solo while Nick takes the day off. He is going to the Rangers game, so I hope he has an absolute blast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off of your first purchase. Today, I am going through some predictions from the preseason and revisiting them because of how embarrassingly wrong I was. And that's just one of the many joys of hosting a podcast or contributing to sports discourse in any way. So make sure to stick around for that. But make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. Like I said, one of the fun parts of the preseason is predicting things. I think that it's part of the excitement, part of the reason you keep coming back to a team. A lot of people thought that this team was going to be good, including myself. A lot of people thought that this team was going to be bad. A lot of people thought that this team was going to be in the middle. There were people all over the place. But with the amount of turnover that was intended to happen, or the impending change at the time, it was definitely a time and a bold time to make some predictions. And I am I deserve to have my Flames podcast host card revoked for this, but let's dive right into it. I will happily take my medicine because I am someone that is way too. I will give anyone the benefit of the doubt, including a team that has let me down time and time again. And I thought that the Flames were going to be better than the Canucks. I remember recording the crossover season preview episode with Trevor from Locked On Canucks, and he said, I think the Canucks are going to be better than the Flames. And I said, no, absolutely not. So I will hold that L near and dear to my heart. I'm just wrong. The Flames are not better than the Canucks. There are only like 5 other teams that are hanging around where the Canucks are right now, and they're all within like a point or two of the top of the league standing. And we know the Flames are nowhere near that. And I think I landed at that conclusion because I figured if Jacob Markstrom got everything together and the goal scoring was still there, we'd have something. And we have something, but it's not a playoff caliber team. That is for certain. I would say it's, safe to say the Flames regressed or did not make any forward progress really, while the Canucks just put it in overdrive. It was very interesting to watch. It's been a very fun season of hockey because the East is wide open and the Canucks are they're good again. And I think that does a lot of good things for hockey. Let's see. My next prediction was Jacob Pelletier and Matthew Coronato being staples in this lineup. I remember Nick and I saying they were going to probably have 10 to 15 goals apiece. That obviously did not happen and has not happened. Pelletier missed up until February with a shoulder injury and came back, played a little bit, and ended up getting sent back down. because he wasn't playing like with that confidence and that assurance you need to move as an NHL player. And of course, Matthew Coronado was also kind of making his transition to the pros after finishing up at Harvard. And he, just like anything else, it took time to adjust, and it is still taking time to adjust. He's up with the club right now. And I think that it's good to see that he's getting those minutes. I want to see more of him on the power play. I want to see more of him out there. I want to see him logging as many minutes as possible because we talk about it all the time. You don't know what you're getting unless you exhaust all your options. And I think that it's fair to like put Coronado out there, especially in a game like tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks. Like you have nothing to lose against any of these teams. Just go out there and do it. Just run the most ridiculous plays because what is stopping you? Nothing. You aren't playing for anything other than like a draft lottery spot. So if a player has a few more goals against than normal, I don't really think it matters, especially a young player. Like you are trying to break them into the NHL routine, to the lifestyle that comes with it, to the what's the word I'm looking for? Endurance one needs to stay at the NHL level. So give Coronado as many cracks as you can. I don't see the issue with that. But coming up next, we are going to take a look at some more predictions because I really was blinded. I had on rose-colored glasses that no one was going to shake off of me. But before we do that, I do want to take a quick break here and talk to you about an app that I hope that you enjoy, and that would be Sleeper. We are well past the halfway point in the season, and the Flames are getting ready to wrap up the season. But regardless of who you'll be rooting for in the playoffs, I want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Chris Kreider, Alexander Ovechkin, Artemi Panarin will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Flames fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Thanks everyone for hanging around on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. When the Flames were doing like their management overhaul, I was excited because we all know that teams need change. They are, it is just something that is natural. It's not, like sometimes, I mean, we all know how last season ended with Daryl Sutter. It was bad. It was not something they could bring players back to. You weren't going to get anything productive out of that. And they were already, stooping to new lows. It was not good. And when they brought in Ryan Huska, I was excited. I mean, I really thought Mitch Love was going to get the job, but they did decide to go with Huska. And I would say Huska's done a good job. He has the mentality that this team needs, where this team is younger. They aren't being punished for the costly turnovers, the misreads, things that you have to learn from. It's not like a dog where if it pees in the house, you say no and then make it sit in the corner or whatever. I don't know how you train a dog. I have never trained a dog in my life. But you have to give them opportunities to learn and to correct their mistakes. And I think that it's been a really nice thing to watch for the Flames, because we spent all of last season watching Sutter punish players for, not doing what he assumes they can and should be doing. And rookies are not going to, like, we would not be seeing Connor Zary or Martin Pospisil in the NHL this season if Daryl Sutter was still the coach. So I'm grateful for that, in that I'm so happy the Flames took a chance on Martin Pospisil as well at the NHL level, because he was not supposed to make the NHL. Like, he was not going to be an NHL regular like Connor Zary may have become. That was kind of the consensus, was that because he missed so much time with an injury and his concussions, he needed a little more time to bake in the AHL, and it's turned out pretty well for him. But my excitement went through the roof when they hired Marc Savard. Obviously, Marc Savard is a former Flame. He played with Huska, and he's a former Bruin, which, for those of you who don't know, hi, I'm from Boston, and the Bruins, my favorite team. The Flames and the Bruins, definitely. I would say the Bruins are a little bit further ahead because they're in the playoffs. But I was so excited because Savard had done really exciting things with his previous coaching experiences. And he is someone that has, I don't know if empathy is the right word, but he has the experience of the head trauma with the concussions to be cognizant and to, talk to the players in a way like, hey, do you want your career ended short because you decided to, you got your head taken off? No. Do you want to be somebody's Matt Cook? No. And I can very well envision him having that conversation with Martin Pospisil. The power play needed an overhaul. It needed something. However, I thought it was going to be better than it is. And I think most people did, because of Savard's experience. I owe Kirk Muller a very big apology. Actually, I thought the power play was going to be so much better, and it's just bad. It is. I wish I could go back and knock some sense into myself, because this is one of those predictions where I feel like it was set up to go right. Like, Marc Savard taking over anyone's power play would probably be, an improvement, or you would see positive outcomes. But the Flames just don't have that going for them. I do not know if it is a matter of them. I don't think it's necessarily always the teams they're facing, because some teams have just abysmal penalty kills and goaltending. But is it the pieces that are on the power play together, or is it the formation? Is like what about it is making it as bad as it is? And that's something they're going to need to figure out this summer. Otherwise, there needs to be a rule that you can just turn down a power play. It's not going to go well for the Flames if this continues. Speaking of goaltending, Jacob Markstrom and Dustin Wolf were a very big storyline going into the season, and they still are, but it's for a much different reason now. The Flames said that they were not going to carry 3 goaltenders between Jacob Markstrom, Dan Vladar, and Dustin Wolf. A lot of people assumed because Vladar is a pending UFA, he would have been moved. That did not happen based on Vladar's performance. People weren't willing to give up assets for him. He'll be available July 1st, and you get him for less. And that's really what a smart GM would do. But again, it's the NHL. You don't always have to be super smart to be a general manager. I don't think Jacob Markstrom was ever going to lose his job to Dustin Wolf. I think that was just something that was so far-fetched, and you don't do that to a veteran goaltender, especially one that has proven that he can play at Vezina candidate quality. So I just fully expected Dustin Wolf to be starting a lot more frequently in the NHL. And I think everyone did. And this is another one where it was like all signs pointed to Dustin Wolf getting some significant time or a little bit more time in the NHL. And Jacob Markstrom was not bad. He definitely had his moments this season, I would say, where if I remember correctly, it was the start of the season where I was like not confident in this season at all, simply because of him. But believe it or not, you just need to get used to playing again. You gotta get acclimated. And with Vladar being out now for the next 10, 11 games, you have to let Wolf start. I think that he should be starting tonight against Chicago, but that is, again, just my opinion. I do not expect much when he does start. The defense is another thing that is contributing to his start at the NHL level. If he was consistently in front of the defense that the Flames had to start the season, and then really up until the trade deadline, I think things would look a lot different for Wolf. But that, again, that 'tis just my opinion. I do think we are obviously going to see more of him next season, and it's truly just a matter of how often and if they are comfortable doing that. Because if not this year, then it needs to be next year, especially with him being an RFA this summer. They need to have figured this out very soon. But coming up next, we are going to wrap up the show with what I would call humiliating predictions. But also there's one in there where I'm like, good, I'm glad this turned out like this, because it shows that I was wrong, but in a good way. So we will be back right after this, and make sure you stick around for more Locked On Flames. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. You can follow me on Twitter at Just Belmosto. I want to start with what I thought was going to happen. I thought this was going to happen over the summer, and I'm so grateful it didn't, because I do think Elias Lindholm needed a change of scenery. I think he needed to move on from the Flames organization, and that's not a knock to him. I just think that he didn't want to be here anymore. Again, that is pure speculation. But I thought that he was going to have an extension signed. I thought any day we were going to wake up, at least up until like December. I was waking up. Oh, today's the day Elias Lindholm gets extended. Oh, today's the day Noah Hanifin gets extended. I was wrong on both of those, and I'm fine being wrong on that because it sounds like Lindholm has been kind of dealing with an injury off and on, and it's lingered a little bit because he's not resting to 100%. And we talk about this a lot about how playing on injuries does more harm than good. And he should be resting up until the playoffs, really, or at least, last 3 games of the season. Let him go out there and get him, dust himself off. But I do not. I think that the Flames ultimately dodged another contract bullet with Lindholm because he wanted like $9 million, and the Flames offered him that, and he still turned it down. So thank you, Lindholm, for that. I'd say I'd buy you a coffee, but you should be buying me a coffee because you're rich. This one I really don't like being right about or wrong about because it is a very poor reflection on contracts, on the roster construction, on the more so the player than anything. And if you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you know that I have said no one is immune from criticism. And that started with Gaudreau and Tkachuk back in the bubble. So Jonathan Huberdeau had 55 points last season. I came into this season saying he has to do more. He has to put up more points. And he has 44 points with 10 games left. You do the math and let me know if you think he's going to have more points because it is very unlikely. And seeing a decline again is not good. But I also want to add in there, he was playing with Lindholm for a lot of the season, who was really struggling. He was not here. Him and Sharangovich really picked up chemistry as well, which is great. But ultimately, like, you need your center. And there weren't many successful opportunities, I guess. So Jonathan Huberdeau, again, I need to see more than 55 points, but I need to see 65, 70, 75, like somewhere between 65 and 75. It's not good. It is not good. But something I am so happy to be wrong about, so happy, the trade deadline. I did not have faith in Craig Conroy nailing contract extensions or trading players away. I thought that the waiting game was truly going to be a July 1st waiting game. It's great that the trades were executed. It is great that they avoided long, expensive contracts on older players. But I do wonder a lot about what his scouting department's going to do come time for these draft picks. I think that I wish that we could just find more Mackenzie Weegers, like younger, and make them all of our defensive pair because him and Anderson are great. Shillington's great. I want to see more from the other 3. I think that those pretty much, Miromanov is on a 2-way contract. So I really think like it is going to be something that happens out of camp, or they sign another free agent defenseman to like a 1 or a 2-year deal. I saw James Johnson float around. I believe Matt Dumba he's a defenseman, right? Or yeah. So there's options, but I like this defense is not going to be as tight and cohesive as it has been for the last 3 or 4 years. I really like the defense. I think that it had been really good for the majority of the time I've covered this team in the last 4 calendar years, but 5 NHL seasons. It has been very tight knit. It has been like there have definitely been moments like with any team where it's like, holy cannoli, please do not ever experiment with that again. I'm also really curious what could have happened with Juuso Välimäki. Connor Mackey's been injured for the Wolfpack, but it looks like Välimäki has kind of had that chance to play NHL minutes like a first rounder should. So it's just unfortunate that it turned out the way that it did. And Daryl Sutter said, put this man on waivers. It probably doesn't help when you fight your coach's kid, but you didn't know he was going to be your coach at this point. I don't know. Regardless, I hope that everyone has adjusted well to coming to Calgary or their new locations. These prediction look backs are going to be something we dive deeper into, I would say, when the season's over, because there's so much has happened this year that I would love to just scrub the takes, scrub any evidence. Like, it is okay to be wrong. Sometimes it's good to be wrong. And especially when you predict your first time general manager, it's going to be trash at the trade deadline. So it has been a delight being wrong in that aspect. So thank you everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. And Nick and I will see you tomorrow. Please stay safe, stay dry, stay warm, stay hydrated, and be kind.